Hey guys, Brenden Valks, the gentleman here. I am the gentleman with cerebral palsy. To my left, to your right, is my co-host Jeremy Wiens, and this is Embrace the Storm podcast, episode numero uno. We are super fired up that you're here with us. We're going to spend time today talking about what Embrace the Storm is, why a podcast, why we're doing it together, and a little bit about when we might go in the future with it, and ultimately simply have a conversation with each other and bring you along for the ride. So with that being said, Jerry, how you doing?
I'm doing excellent. I'm excited. I'm a little bit nervous, but I think I've been looking forward to this for quite a long time, and I'm sure you are too. So this is something I've been a little bit geeked up about this week, and just getting everything ready, making sure it's all good. So
Yeah.
How about you? How are you?
I am doing really good too. You're right. I'm super fired up about this. We've been talking about this for probably, 6-8 months, and we are absolutely going to talk about that here on the podcast for sure. But yeah, I'm super fired up to get into it. And I think where I want to start is the fact that this is going to be awkward. This is going to be a little bit weird because it's our first one, but we want to bring you along for the ride. And I'm going to just go on our website here, embracethestorm.ca, and read to you a little bit about where this came from, where this idea came from, and then we'll talk a little bit about why us on the podcast.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
So there's two reasons why I chose the name Embrace the Storm and why the logo is the logo. First and foremost, the bison is my favorite animal. Its grace, its beauty, the pure savagery of the bison, and also its story of almost going extinct and coming back from the brink of extinction, I think is amazing. And the second one, a mentor of mine, he told a story about how buffalo turn into a storm. They don't shy away from it like other animals do. They turn into it when things get hard. And I believe that that's the way we should face life as men too, is to embrace those storms of life and move forward.
I agree. Like when you cower away and you go with the storm, it's just going to keep raining. It's going to keep hitting you, keep hitting you. But you go into it. Like when you explained that to me the first time, I was just like, wow, that's so cool. That's awesome. I loved it. So that is exactly why I wanted to go with this theme of the buffalo and embrace the storm. I loved it right off the bat.
Yeah, and then that was probably 6-8 months ago over coffee. We were talking about that, and we said, man, it'd be super awesome to do something like what we're doing here. And here we are 6-8 months later, and I think part of it procrastination, part of it nervousness, and not totally sure what we wanted to do. And you were just telling me before we hopped on camera here that you were going to do this all by yourself. You tried it all by yourself, and it just wasn't any fun without me.
Well, you know what? That's just it. Like, you know what? I like to take action. I don't like to wait. I hate when delayed, when you have to wait for something to happen. So yeah. I like to dive right in, like dive right into the embrace the storm, right? Go right into it, right?
Yes.
And so I was like, I want to head right into doing a podcast. I want to do something, and I started doing it. I sat here, I recorded, and I was just like, man, this is not at all what I wanted. And that's where I called you back up and I was like, hey, you know what? Let's get together. Let's do this. Everything's set up. Come down. I think what, a week or two later, here we are, and we're actually doing this. So yeah, it's
I never told you this, but when you said, hey, I think I'm just going to do my own thing for now, I was actually a little bit disappointed because I wanted to do a podcast, but I knew I didn't have the wherewithal to do it all by myself, to do it right. And to continue on with it, because I've had a podcast in the past, but I wasn't consistent with it. And so the fact that you called me back up and was like, hey, let's roll, I was super fired up about that. And I guess that's on the next topic I wanted to talk about. And when you guys kind of see me glancing over, I just want to show you I'm not just looking off into space. I have my notebook here, my leather notebook, to take notes. But you were telling me a little bit about your vision of why we're doing it together. And I think that you articulate that a whole lot better than I do. So I'd love to hear your take on why we're doing this together, why I'm not doing it solo, why you're not doing it solo.
Right. You know what? Part of it is just knowing that when we see people doing podcasts, and we see a lot of people doing it, and they are like, they arrived. They're sharing their experiences of how they got to the top, how they got to the heights of where they're at, which is absolutely phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
But my take on it, where I kind of came in, was I wanted to be at a place where I'm not where I want to be yet.
Yeah.
I'm not, my goal is not achieved. I have a lot more I want to reach, a lot more I want to go to. And I know that there's going to be a lot more things happening along the way, challenges and storms that are going to be coming up that are going to be there, right? And so often when we see people who got to the top and we're like, man, I wish I knew how they did it. Man, I wish I knew what they were doing. And inside, I truly believe that we're both on our own journeys, but we're going to get to the top. And I think we're headed in the right direction. We're doing the right things to get there. And we're going to learn. And some of those things we're going to face those storms of life, but we don't have to do it alone. And the great thing about that is why we wanted to do a podcast about it, is that you can see somebody who is striving for better, striving for more, and doing the work. And what does that look like? And so you're not seeing somebody who's at the top, but somebody who's heading there. And what the top is, well, that we don't really know. That's not determined, but we're heading up in a direction. So what the top is for me now, in 10 years from now, is not going to be the same top that it's going to be then, right? So that's why I say what the top is, we don't know. I have my goals now, but to go and achieve them and go and you know what, take people along on the journey and just show you, hey, look, I'm not doing this all on my own. Look, I got Brendan here to encourage me along this and walk with me through this, and maybe I can encourage him, and maybe we can encourage you, and maybe you can come back and encourage us as well. Like that, it's about building community and growing together and elevating everybody up, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, there's a lot of people I admire on the internet, and we talk about some of our favorites all the time.
absolutely.
And they're amazing, but you're right. They're already making their millions, their billions, whatever it is, or they already have the lifestyle, whatever that thing is. Because we all have different things, like you said, and I think that what's interesting to me that you said is we don't know what the top is because we're not there yet. And for me, my passion and my love is to help people get better every day. And what I really want Embrace the Storm to be about is a group of men that are passionate about getting better every single day.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to mention is that's how you and I became friends.
Absolutely.
Is we didn't know each other from a hole in the ground not that long ago, but our mutual love and respect for growth and getting better every day. Although we both stalled out that's what our friendship is based on, is that mutual love and respect of growth. And that's what I want Embrace the Storm to be about, is to be about men fighting for each other and wanting to, well, not fighting for each other, sorry, but being in each other's corner.
Yeah.
Being in each other's corner, being that resource. And obviously, I hope to figure out how to make a business out of it one day. But for now,
absolutely.
my passion is about, like you said, let's do the journey. That's what Embrace the Storm is about. It's about going through those storms, hopefully together rather than alone. And that's exactly why we want to start this podcast, to start having those conversations now. Mm-hmm. Also, from a legacy play, I think the idea of leaving something behind is really cool. There's a gentleman I follow on YouTube, Dwayne Noel. I don't know if you know, but he's got Dry Creek Wrangler School, and that's he's blown up on the internet. If you search him up, I appreciate him very much. But he just started because he wanted to leave his kids and grandkids with something.
Okay.
Right? For posterity. Yeah. And so that's why I love the idea of a podcast too, because it leaves something behind. Not that you and I are going anywhere anytime soon, but this idea that we can then also look back next year, 5 years, 10 years. And I hope that that's what we can do for people that are listening or watching or whatever they're doing on the internet. That we can give them that sense of, oh, look at these guys starting where they started and look where they are now. And my fear for myself is to look back a year from now and be in the same place.
Absolutely.
And that's also why we're friends, is because we won't let each other stop. Think about it. How many times, and I know I haven't let you get a word in edgewise, but how many times have you stalled out and I've been like, get it together, like, what's next? And vice versa.
Absolutely. And that's just it, right? And that's where, going back to, I think we were talking about earlier, is about that iron sharpens iron, right? Mm-hmm. Is that it's a place where we felt like I've hit those times where like, man, I don't know what I'm doing. I just feel like I'm lost. I'm like at this place where my business isn't going the way I want it to. I'm
Yeah.
kind of in a low point, and and it's frustrating. And
Yeah.
you don't know really, you don't want to really bother too many people with it, but
Yes.
you have your group, like your
Yeah.
core, right? And as small as it is, if you don't have that, that's so important. So like that's what we want to actually develop, is for those who don't have that,
Yeah.
is that you have a core here. We can help you along in that. Not that we have all the answers,
Yeah.
but we can say, hey, look, you know what? Keep pushing, keep fighting, keep going. You don't know necessarily a lot about real estate in all the areas that I'm working in,
Yeah.
but you know people, you know how to, business, you know how to encourage, different insights, and based off what I've talked
Yeah.
with you about,
Yeah.
you could be like, hey, didn't you say this? Didn't you say
Yeah.
that? And all of a sudden, bam, we also have this whole different dialogue. And
Yes.
it's about listening, it's about being with each other, you encourage each other, and then when those storms come, we're like, bam, we can run it.
Yes.
When you're alone, though, like that's the other thing about the bison, the buffalo, they're not a lone creature, they're not the
Yes.
lone wolf, right? And like for me, my favorite animal is the wolf. I got it
Yes.
even tatted on my arm, right?
Yes.
And and I love the wolf, and it's something that means a lot to me.
Yes.
But the bison is not all on your own. They're in a herd. They're
Yes.
going together. And so that's, to me, is extremely motivational to keep going, right?
Yes.
And like we said, well, that's our hope for this podcast, is that people
Yes.
see it and they reach out and be like, hey, I want to join this. I want to join something more. I want to be encouraged. I'm struggling, or you know what? I have something to add. Like I'm not struggling right now, but I'm in a good place,
Yeah.
and I've been in a bad place. So how can I add to that?
Yes.
Awesome. That's what we want to hear, right? We want a group of not just people who are struggling, but people who have success as well, and that we can all
Yeah.
work together, right? It's a
And
community.
I think the amazing thing about that is like the fact that you have perspective on things going on in my life, and I have perspective on things going on in your life. Not because we're special. It's because we come with different expertise. We come with different insights, different thoughts than the other person. And so when you're going through something, what do they say? You can't see the forest through the trees. And I think a lot of times when you hit some of those hard times, you can't see the forest through the trees. And so having someone else's perspective is super valuable. And that kind of leads me to what I wanted to talk about next was our 5 key health indicators that embrace the storm. So we've got physical health, spiritual health, mental health, relationship health, and business health. Business could be career too if you don't have your own business.
Yeah.
Don't get it twisted. There's a place for everybody.
Absolutely.
But the idea here is life is all of those things. It's not just physical health. It's not just mental health. It's not just your business, right? Which you and I talk a lot about because we're both passionate about it, about how we grow in our careers. But life is all of those things.
Absolutely.
And what I found personally, and I kind of have a little catchphrase, or catchphrase sounds silly, like I'm a superhero or something. But life is everything or nothing.
Right.
And the whole idea is if my marriage sucks, my career's probably going to suck. If my career sucks, my marriage is going to suffer. If my physical health isn't good, all those things are going to suffer. Like it's all interconnected.
Yeah.
So life is everything or nothing. And that's, to me, it's very important that you have all of those things lined up. Now, granted, if you were to scale yourself 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 or something in each one of those areas, they're all a sliding scale. And tomorrow, my marriage might need help. The next day, my physical health might need help, and so on and so forth. So that's why every day we get up and we try to be a little bit better. While you're in the gym early in the morning deadlifting, those sorts of things. So we're here to really push each other in each one of those areas. And I call them the 5 key health indicators for life because you need them all.
Well, let's go into them a little bit. Like we have 5 there, so let's go break it down. You got it listed there. So physical health, that's for me something that I am really working at. That's where this year I've really, especially in the last few months, I've really said, okay, I got to take this seriously. I got to really do something. And so what I've done personally, and I say this is going to really hold me accountable to it as well.
I'm
right?
going to be there.
So, but like I'm like, okay, so I got somebody to give me a workout program.
Yep.
I've been to the gym lots. I know I've been there for a number of years,
Yeah.
and I know a lot of stuff. And I was doing it by myself, and I was like, you know what, I could do it, but it's just like I need somebody to give me a program.
Yeah.
So I reached out to somebody, did that.
Hold on.
But
Can we stop for a second?
Sure.
Accountability.
Accountability.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
And that's one of those things for me. Why we're doing this together.
Absolutely.
Why I want to grow a community of men with kids. Let's get specific here. Men with kids that have wives that are really trying to grow.
Yeah.
Because for me, that accountability piece, you could do it on your own. You know the information, and this was something I was actually thinking about this all afternoon today. This was on my heart. Is I know what to do. Jeremy knows what to do. The people listening to this, you men know what to do.
Yeah. But
for some freaking reason, we don't do it.
Absolutely.
But as soon as we have that accountability of other men holding our feet to the fire, calling us out on our BS, we're like, oh, I'm going to follow through on my workout plan.
It's different.
Right?
There's something different about it.
Sorry to cut you off there.
Yeah, no.
But that's super important, I think, to point out.
Yeah. And so
you got accountability.
Accountability there, right? And it's not that I'm not going to the gym. I've been going to the gym for a while, for a number of years now.
Yeah.
Like I just turned 41, and I'm super proud of this. So I'm going to kind of talk it up.
Give it.
On my 41st birthday, which is just in October here.
Yeah.
My goal, I was going to the gym and I was like, I'm just going to lift, and I love the bench press, so I'm going to see what I can do, right? I'm just going to go all out. And I hit a new record for myself. I did 280 pounds of a bench press. And I was just like, this is my goal, right? So it's not that I haven't built muscle over the years. It's just I haven't chose wisely. So I know right away the biggest problem is not going to the gym. It's actually going to be my diet. So what did I do? I got somebody give me a diet plan, give me everything else. So now I have that going too. So now I have that. So like even today, I was doing meal prep for all of next week already.
Fantastic.
So I'm kind of ahead of the game
love
with some of the things, some of the stuff I make the night before. But this is one thing where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this every day. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to and so I meal prepped for.
I love that, and I think in future episodes we're going to talk a little bit about that side of things.
Sounds good, yeah.
Because I think that the family dynamic makes that conversation super interesting. I'm going to go on record now and say that the nutrition part for me, I'm pretty good at, because I'm a geek when it comes to nutrition. So not very many people know this, and so I'm putting it here first, I guess, is I actually have my level 1 nutrition certification through Clean Health Institute. You can look them up online. They're in Australia. They're fantastic. But for me, because I've been gluten sensitive since I was 21, I've really deep dived on all things nutrition. I'm a super big fan of Rob Wolf and some of his stuff. Again, we don't need to go into that, but for me, it's been the workouts. So I get on that train of I'm super consistent, and then I'm not. And then I'm super consistent, and then I'm not. And I'm now starting this coming week, because we're doing this on a Friday. I don't know when we're going to put it out, but we're doing this on a Friday.
Yeah.
So this coming week, I'm back on game plan for physical activity, working out and things to nail it, because it's super important. And the reason why we wanted to talk about this for a second, physical health is number 1 on those 5 key health indicators, because what I've learned, both personally and watching others that I admire, Bedros Keuilian is a big one right now. He's like in his mid-50s, early 50s, and crushing it. But he says this a lot, and I agree wholeheartedly, just from my own limited experience. If my physical health isn't there, if I'm not going to the gym, if I'm not working out, eating right, the rest of my life suffers.
Yeah. Cool.
I'm not showing up the way I need to in my walk with God. I'm not showing up the way I need to with my family, in my career, all these things.
Yeah.
And it all starts with that physical health, and that's why it's number 1.
Yeah.
Super important.
Well, even going off that, so I followed with Gary Brecka, I think his name. He talks about the 30-30-30 method, right?
Okay.
Have you heard of this yet?
I haven't.
All right. He says get up, and within 30 minutes of getting up, you
Yep.
have 30 grams of protein.
Ow.
What? So 30 grams of protein, and then followed by 30 minutes of cardiovascular workout. So low, keep your heart rate low, not high intensity.
We're talking about walking?
Yeah, low intensity. So I lift weights, and that's part of it. That's fine, and it doesn't get my heart rate up, right? So
Gotcha.
so I started that this week, is the 30-30-30.
Okay.
But before I get into the 30-30-30, I just started also this week into the ice tub, which is, if you know me, I hate cold. And the only thing worse than cold is cold water.
Yes.
I can't have a cold shower. I can't
Yes.
stand it.
Yes.
But this week I've been going and jumping in there every day, and it's just like, oh, you know what? But
Yeah.
there's something about doing something hard every day and starting something difficult.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, you're like, I'm just going to rule this day, and I'm going to go forward, right? So,
Well, I think there's the idea too of stacking wins, right?
oh,
So-
goodness, we got to get into that. Yeah,
So-
that might be a whole one
I
by
was gonna
itself.
say we'll do a whole episode on that maybe. But this idea of like, and obviously we didn't come up with this, but the whole idea of stacking wins, right? You get up, like going up your 30-30-30 here. I wrote it down. 30 grams of protein, it's a win.
Absolutely.
30 minutes of cardio, it's a win.
Yeah.
30 minutes, obviously not in the ice tub, but 30 minutes of all these things, it's a win.
Oh yeah.
Ice bath, win. So before anybody else has even gotten out of bed for the day, you've got 5, 6, 10 wins.
Yeah.
And you're talking about crushing the day. You feel great physically, but mentally your body's going, I won.
Yeah.
I won. I won.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's going to be a whole other thing, because I could go off on that
Yes.
for I don't know how long right now, because I used that stacking this
Yes.
week because it was.
Did you?
100%. Well, okay, I'll dive into it a little bit. Let's go.
Just give us a
I'll give it a little touch. So I woke up one day. I got up and I was like, woke up and I was not in a good mood, and you know what? It was one of those things where I was like, oh. Got up, went to the scale. The scale was up by just a little bit, like half a pound. But I was like, oh.
Which is frustrating to you because you've
Right.
been working your tail off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, fine. And this was on Tuesday, because I know it because of the second day going into the ice tub. So
Yeah.
I'm like, after day one, I thought, well, maybe I'll put headphones in, because put on music, distract myself, might make it a little bit easier, right?
Yeah.
So I'll throw in the earbuds, get into the ice tub, bump my earbud, it falls into the bottom of the ice tub.
Son of a gun.
It's done.
We're starting
We're-
like this.
This is how we're starting, right? And I'm just like, and at that point, and now there's this thing in there, and I went underneath there, so I couldn't get it unless I got out, and I was in there already. I'm like, if I get out, I get that thing,
Yeah.
which is already shot at this point.
Yeah. So you may as well just
So I just sat there for the next minute and a half or 2 minutes while this thing that I know is just dying.
and you were steaming the entire, yeah.
But here's the thing: the ice bath, the science behind it is actually pretty phenomenal. Where it sends dopamine, you get just dopamine hits after, right? And I was thinking about it, I'm like, man, that sucks. And then I was like, oh, I'm so mad. And then I also just started relaxing. I was like, what's the point of getting mad, right? So anyway, I get out of there. My head earbuds are shot, so there goes my AirPods.
Yeah.
Get to the gym. Now I'm a little bit behind. Get to the gym. Can't finish my workout because I have time limits, and also I'm like frustrated to get to the gym, but I pushed it. So whatever. Get home, get ready, go to work. I'm late for a meeting right off the bat, and I'm like, just like right, frustrated.
Yes.
But I got there. But the meeting kind of was a whole thing that wasn't really productive for the first little while, so I didn't really miss much. But it was still frustrating, right? So I kind of all these things.
You're on top of your game, so it's
Right,
annoying when you're late.
At the end of the day, I was there. I'm like, and I'm journaling, and I'm like, and I journal what am I thinking about, right? Just get it out, right? So I just started like, this is how my day started.
Yeah.
And I stopped, and I'm like, but I got up at 5:45.
Yes.
And I went and I weighed myself.
Yes.
I got up and I went to the ice tub and I sat in there. I went to the gym and I had a good workout. I had a good sweat.
Yes.
I went to work. I sat in the course. I was productive. I made phone calls. I did the things I need to do.
Yes.
I reached out to the people I need to reach out to. I came back and I got to go see my daughter's volleyball game. I got to do and I just started looking and I just started stacking those wins. I'm like, how was that not a good day, right?
100%.
Like, yeah, you know what? I lost a pair of headphones, which really sucked. But but at the end of the day, right? So that's my short version of that. But yeah, so going back, that's stacking. Where I look back at and I tell you this: when I woke up Wednesday morning after stacking,
Yeah.
I was like, let's go. I was so pumped.
Yeah, because
And
you went to bed with a clear conscience,
Oh,
knowing you left it in the arena, right?
oh yeah, and I was so ready to jump into that ice tub because I was like, that set the bar for me. So I was like,
Yeah.
let's go. And I hate cold water, but I did it anyway, right? So, so it was one of those things, right?
Yes.
But yeah, we should probably carry on with our list there.
I could listen to you talk about that all day long, 'cause I love that idea. I love stacking wins.
Yeah,
Mentally, I don't do it enough myself, so I'm gonna get back into it.
Yeah.
Because I love that.
let's do it. Yeah.
But spiritual health is the next one. For me, my relationship with God is super important.
Yeah.
And the only reason it comes after physical health and not before physical health is because if you're not physically healthy, I personally believe that it's very difficult to have a relationship with God because you're so worried about being sick and frail and what have you. But spiritual health to me is super important. Spending time with God, spending time in the Word. For all you guys out there who maybe you haven't read your Bible in a long time, maybe you're not overly God or into religion or being a Christian or whatever the case. I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but the idea is I challenge you to read Proverbs. Read Proverbs because it's not just simply in the Bible, it's great advice for life. And that's what I'm reading through right now just because someone I follow was recently going through Proverbs, and so I want to re-go through it. And so that's what I'm doing right now. I challenge you, if you haven't picked up a Bible in a while, start in Proverbs 1, work your way through, see how you feel after. So that's why it's number 2.
Yeah. And I think it's very important, even for myself, just be transparent here. It's something I ended up just buying a new Bible recently because I haven't opened mine a whole lot in the last while, right?
Yeah.
I just haven't. And so I started to, and I was like, and especially this week where I like, this came Tuesday night, which is kind of just to stack that win again. One more thing, right? Is I was like, I don't even know where to read, and I say this, and I have a BA in pastoral ministry, right? And I'm like, I don't know where to read. What do I do? And I was just spending a little bit of time thinking about this, and Ezekiel 37 verse 6 came to mind, and all it was talking about, I will put new flesh on. I will breathe into these bones and bring them back to life again. And it's just like such an encouraging verse where. And you know what? Ezekiel 37 is very encouraging.
Yeah.
Like it just talks about the valley of dry bones, right? Where God's going to give them the skin. They're going to give them these bones life again. And for myself, I was like,
in that moment, that's
what I need to hear, right?
And God knew that.
And He speaks in those moments, right? And it's just like, man, it just fired me up. Like I was just like, you know what? He's not dead. He's coming back. There's so many things that just he speaks. He's still alive and speaking to us today. And we sometimes we miss that and we take it for granted, or we just don't think about it, or whatever it is, right? And that, I think that's where I was for a while. And so getting into it again, it was just like, man, that is what I needed, right? So
I think the interesting thing about Ezekiel, and we'll just spend 3 seconds here. The interesting thing about Ezekiel is when that book is written, the place that Ezekiel is in. Ezekiel has done so much in his life up to that point, and then he writes Ezekiel, and it's just it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, let's move on.
Yeah.
Mental health, and I was saying to you before we went on air. We're on the radio. But I was saying to you about mental health. It's not just how you're feeling mentally, how you're doing mentally, but it's also about what are you putting into your mind.
Yeah.
Right? So our mind, actually my son was saying just today, it's the mind is an incredible thing, and it is. And what we put in produces results.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, I forget what book this is in or who says it, but this idea that you can plant corn and 2 feet away you can plant a deadly poison and they'll both grow.
Yeah.
Right? So what you put into your mind grows.
Yeah.
It's in a book, guys, so if you know, let me remind me of what it is.
Yeah.
Can't think of the title right now. The author is James Allen, though.
Okay.
But this idea of what you're putting in. And so are you studying? Are you trying to get better?
Yeah.
And I know most of us we try and leave school behind, right? But school had its purpose and it did its thing, but that's not really studying. Studying is to get better in whatever you're doing. So whether that's being a husband, being a father, having a career, being a business owner, maybe being a better golfer, although don't spend all your time doing that. But whatever it is, are you studying to get better? And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about mental health. I know you've gone through a ton of stuff with this in recent years. I'd love to get your thoughts kind of where that plays.
Yeah, so I like to. I don't have time to always sit and read books. I like books, but I don't have the time. So I downloaded Audible so I can learn, right? And I was looking at it today. I think in the last 2 years, I'm on my 59th book that I have on there.
And were you a reader before that?
I wasn't much of a reader. I like to read once in a while.
Okay.
Like I could sit there and read, but my thing was always time, right? Is how do I spend the time doing this? Well,
Yeah.
now doing real estate, you're driving a lot, right? So I could be listening to music, get myself hyped up, and just having a good time,
Which has a place.
which absolutely has a place, and that's called the gym. Or I could be learning something, right? And
Yeah.
I love to learn, and I'm just now into cyber psychonetics or psychonet.
Malts,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. What a good book! Like I just started. I think I'm in chapter 2, but it's like
I've been
so
told.
good.
I've been told, and maybe you can fill me in because I haven't actually read the book, but I've been told don't let the title fool you or make you think it's woo woo. Like you should definitely dive in. Is that a fair?
I'm on chapter. I just finished chapter 1, and the intro got me hooked. Like the preface, and
Yeah.
I was like, man, this just spoke to me so fast, so much. I was like, that's me. How you see yourself is such a big thing, and I'm like, man, that is me, right? And
Yeah,
it's something
yeah.
I struggle with because I go through the ups and the downs just like everybody else, right?
Yes.
And so so half my books are on real estate, on sales, on business.
Yeah.
Half my books are on on mindset, mental health, and guiding,
Yeah.
and how to improve myself, right? So I kind of have a mix of that. Though I don't really spend too much into the fantasy. I do more of the
Yes.
teach me something, right?
I
So
think for the sake of this point here on mental health, I think it's guys, it doesn't necessarily have to be business, it doesn't have to be your mindset. Pick something you're passionate about, start listening to it, start studying, start reading it, start absorbing it. Like you said, you're not a huge reader, but you're an Audible guy because of time.
yeah,
Right? I do both. I do Audible and I do hardcover
Yeah.
reading, sometimes on Kindle, but I read. And the point is pick something you're passionate about.
absolutely.
Because I think, yeah, you can get into nuances, sales,
Yeah,
marketing, all these different things around your business or your career or what have you, but just pick something you're passionate about, start learning more about it, start getting better at it. And that'll ignite, in my opinion anyways, that'll ignite your passion for reading and learning and growing and studying, trying new things.
absolutely. I 100% agree with that. Yeah.
Next up for us in our 5 key health indicators for life is relationship health. And as you can tell, some of these physical health has to be number one, but the rest of them can be in any order you so choose, I suppose. The next one, though, is relationship health. So I think for me, relationship health is two things. It's how I am with my wife as a husband and how I am as a father with my kids. And I really, really see those two things as very independent of each other because my relationship with my wife is totally different than my relationship with my kids.
I
And
agree.
you have to build into both.
Yeah.
And so when you're setting goals under each one of these, which is a separate podcast conversation, I think, but when you're setting goals under each one of these things, it needs to be, how am I going to spend time with my kids and build into my kids?
Yeah.
And stages of life are different. And you and I are actually great for this conversation, I think, because I've got younger kids and you've got older kids, even though you're not that old, you have older kids.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that is super hard when you have kids is dating your wife or, in your case, partner. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot,
Well, it's. I think we'll have a good, interesting conversation about this yet because we're coming at two different places, right?
Yes. you know?
Well, it's. I think we'll have a good, interesting conversation about this yet because we're coming
Yeah.
at two different places, right?
Yes.
You're coming from a marriage where it's strong and it's a good place and like really
Yes.
not a good thing, right? And
Yes.
I don't recommend it. I mean, like at all, right? Like,
Yes.
but there's, but it was a rough place. But you know what? I coming out of it, I'm in a way better place than I was then. So there is that, and
Yeah.
then what did I do with the kids, right? With my kids, right? And
Yes.
so
Conversation, I think. But when you're setting goals under each one of these things, it needs to be, how am I going to spend time with my kids and build into my kids?
yeah.
And stages of life are different, and you know, you and I are actually great for this conversation, I think, because I've got younger kids and you've got older kids. Even though you're not that old, you have older kids.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that is super hard when you have kids is dating your wife, or in your case, partner. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot, you know.
Well, it's. I think we'll have a good, interesting conversation about this yet because we're coming
Yeah.
at two different places, right?
Yes.
You're coming from a marriage where it's strong and it's a good place and like and 100% like that's awesome, right? Like
Yeah.
right. I'm coming at it from I was married, I went through divorce, which was really
Yes.
not a good thing, right? And
Yes.
I don't recommend it. I mean, like at all, right? Like,
Yes.
but the
She didn't like me.
yeah. Well, teeth whited, but no,
Yeah, yeah.
just kidding.
But I think there's a lot to be said on both sides,
Absolutely.
on the good and the bad and the challenges and different things
Yeah.
that we could definitely touch on. And last on the list, and this is last on the list on purpose as well, is business health. So business health goes for if you have a business or if you have a career. Not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone wants to be a business in and of themselves. Like you kind of have the best of both worlds, where you have a career as a real estate agent under a team or as
Nope.
part of a team,
No, no,
but
yeah.
you're independent,
Yeah.
right? Like you're part of a team,
I'm part of
But-
Coldwell Banker, but I'm on my own. Yeah.
but you're on your own. And so it's kind of the best of both worlds, where
Yeah.
you get the support of a team,
Absolutely.
but you're an entrepreneur in and of itself, right?
Yeah.
And so regardless of where you're coming from, guys, whether it's career or whether it's your own business, I think business health is for you. I just had to title it something when I
Yeah.
put these together.
Yeah.
I couldn't make caveats because then it wouldn't fit very nicely on
Yeah.
on here.
Yeah.
But the idea is, what are you doing daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, quarterly, etc., to grow in those areas of business, career? Because how many of you are stuck and don't want to be stuck,
Yeah.
right? But when's the last time you invested in yourself and your skills? Like you were talking, you were just at a conference or a class
Yeah.
or something, and when I got serious about what I wanted to do for a living, which I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up, but I started spending money on courses, on different masterminds and things to learn more about what I was currently doing at that point.
Yeah.
And that's what I've consistently done, because I learned watching a YouTube video of someone that we might talk about future, but he said, if you're not willing to invest in yourself,
Yeah.
why should your employer, right?
Absolutely.
And so I believe wholeheartedly that you should invest in yourself. It's not up to your employer to make you better. It's not up to seniority for you to get a raise or a promotion. It's up to you.
And that's where like that extreme ownership comes in, right?
Mm.
Is no matter what you're doing in life, are you taking ownership of what
Yes.
you're doing, right? And whether you're entrepreneur, whether you're working for somebody, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Are you adding value to what you're doing?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what your job is. Are you adding value? Are you giving the most? Are you there?
Yeah.
Or are you like, I'm working here, but my mind's over there and I'm not really doing anything and I'm like, or are you like, you know what, I'm in this and I'm going to give as much as I can to this
Yeah.
so that it is successful. And then if that's successful, maybe I'll be successful. But in that time, part of growing your business, whether you're working for somebody or doing another job, whether
Yeah.
it's a factory, is you have time to learn
Yes.
something else. You have time to learn another skill.
Yeah.
How often would an employer train you for the next level if they see that in you?
And don't think, like, because a lot of employers now, like some of the bigger guys especially, they'll go, hey, we'll reimburse you for different educational opportunities, etc.
Absolutely.
And you should absolutely take advantage of those.
Yeah.
However, what are you doing before and after work? What are you doing on your breaks? What are you doing? Like, if you truly don't like where you are, if you truly don't like what you're doing, it's on you. Extreme ownership, like you were
Yeah.
talking about, Jocko Willink, who's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Like, get after it yourself.
What are you willing to sacrifice to be better, right? Like there's a scary, scary side of it. Like even for myself, I'll go kind of best example I know is myself because getting into real estate,
Yeah.
I single dad, I had no other income, I had nothing else, and I was diving headlong into real estate.
And how was that first year?
My first year was brutal. I look back at it, and it's nothing short of the grace of God that got me through that year. And that's not even a joke, right? That is like I look back at how much I made. I'm like,
Yeah.
how on earth did I survive, right?
I was having
But
a
I did.
conversation with my colleagues on this exact topic of what are you willing to sacrifice. I love that line because we were talking about that. And if you want certain things in life, you're not going to have all the time in the world with your kids. You're not going to have all the time in the world with your wife. You're not going to have all the time in the world to sit and watch football if that's your thing. Not my thing. I'm not a huge sports guy. But you're not going to have time for all these leisurely things. Right. And so you have to prioritize.
Yeah.
And guess what? Balance. This is me talking at you and maybe not to you. But balance is a myth.
Yeah.
I personally believe, and thank you.
I don't.
I personally believe balance is a myth.
Yeah.
Like the only thing in life is you giving your all to certain areas at certain times.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means turning off your phone and being with your significant other.
Yeah.
110%.
Yeah.
Sometimes that means, hey babe, I gotta go and do some work, and being 110% in work.
Yep.
Like there's no.
And sometimes that means, hey, you know what? Right now it's family time.
Yes.
So I'm going to shut it off.
100.
Sorry, I can't make that appointment right now. My family comes first at this point. Yeah. And so it goes both ways, right? It's a knowing that when to shut it off, when to shut the other off, right?
And I think you learn.
It's definitely a struggle, but you can definitely figure it out.
I think it's one of those things for me where you have to know what's important and you have to go after it.
Yeah.
And I'm on a journey just like everybody is on figuring out what those things are. And one thing I've been really ruminating on or marinating in is this idea that I get to decide today who I am.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I get to decide who I am.
Yeah.
And I can be a whole new person. Someone I follow on the internet, he always talks about who do you have to become.
Right.
Right? So if you want to be rich and famous, as an example,
yeah,
what does that person eat? How do they think?
Yeah.
What time do they get up in the morning? What do they do first? What do they do next? How do they spend their time? And so I think about that a lot. It's like who I am today, who I want to be.
Absolutely.
Where's the gap?
Yeah.
I need to fill that gap.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think there's your focus and what you're going to be. I think it was Bob Proctor that talks about that, isn't it? Or am I thinking the wrong guy?
I think so.
That talks about, like, I know he was talking about somebody who said they wanted a car. They wanted a car.
Yes, that was Bob Proctor.
And then also they wanted a spouse or something, but they kept parking in the middle of the garage.
Yeah.
And they kept parking. Well, why don't you make room for them?
Yeah.
So they did. So they started organizing their life in a way that made room for this person.
You got to make room.
And all of a sudden, as soon as they made room, all of a sudden, like, bam, the person came and they got what they wanted, right? But to make that room for them was
as silly as this example is. He tells another story about his aunt,
right,
who wanted new drapes.
That's the other one. Yes,
he wanted new drapes. She wanted new drapes, and she always wanted new drapes, and they couldn't afford new drapes, and they couldn't get new drapes, and all these things.
Yeah.
And finally, he said to her one day, like, "You're not going to get new drapes because you haven't made room for new drapes." And so she took the new drapes down and bought new drapes. And then a while later, they had new furniture because she got rid of the old furniture because she made room for new furniture. And so I think the concept of making room for the new things is great. And for some of you out there, it might be getting rid of people in your life, editing your circle. It might be getting rid of habits, drinking, drugs, whatever, like wasting time on Netflix, whatever it is. It's making room for what you really want.
And they say it's a sacrifice for a reason. It's not easy,
Yes.
right? Like some of those things, like what you said, friends is sometimes getting rid of the people
Yes.
that are negatively influencing you. Absolutely. Um, but we don't want to give everything away on episode one.
No, no. So to that end, I think actually you gave us a perfect segue into our takeaway, because as I said at the beginning, I wanted to give a takeaway, and I don't want to just give a takeaway in episode one. I want it to be a theme of our show,
Yeah.
of our podcast, of every time we hang out, we give a tangible takeaway.
Yeah.
Maybe it's one, maybe it's two. Today it's gonna be one. Why don't you tell them what it is, because you came up with this kind of.
Okay, how many days do we have left there? Was it 76 or
So,
something?
73. So
73?
So throwing my pen. In 2023, we have 73 days left, guys. 73 days until we ring in the new year.
So what are you going to do? What can you change? And start really planning and thinking about this. Is what can you change now
Yeah.
to make 2024 a successful year? And what can you not only, so now the plan for this week is start thinking about what can you do now
Yeah.
to make that change, right? Because if
Yeah.
you can start thinking now of what that change is going to be, guess what? Next week is going to be how can you implement it? But right now, what can you do? What is something that you can really do to make next year the year you want it to be? What to make it look the way you want it to look?
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of outside circumstances. Oh, we could talk about the economy. We could talk about this and that. We could talk about all these other things. But at the end of the day, is if you work on this one thing and you dedicate it to yourself, how can that change your life for the better?
Yeah.
What's the one thing, right? So just start thinking about something like that and get that really embedded into your mind is what's the one thing I could change?
I agree. When you were talking, is there's 73 days left. And for a lot of people, what they're going to do is they're going to go January 1st, January 2nd, whatever their first day back to work and school is. That's the day I'm going to start XYZ.
Yeah.
Workout plan, nutrition plan, new business, new podcast, whatever it is. We've had those conversations ourselves.
Absolutely.
But the idea is, guys, you have 73 days to accomplish something. What can we start now? Jer said it. What can we start now to start moving forward? So when January 1st comes, January 2nd comes, whatever that first day back to school and work is, we're already rolling. We're already doing new things. And maybe it's you're learning a new language. Maybe it's you're starting a new diet. Maybe it's you're starting a business or a podcast we are. But the idea is you started something new and you're already rolling, right? Because momentum builds momentum.
Absolutely.
Right? That rolling stone keeps rolling.
Yeah. And when that new year comes and everybody's like, well, this new year, I'm going to make this resolution. You're going to be like, yeah, I've been crushing that for 73 days already.
Yeah, you're stacking wins.
You're stacking it, right?
Calling it back.
You're calling it, going right back to it, right? And so by the time that comes, the goal you would set for yourself for your New Year's resolution will be changed, will be further along because you started those habits now.
Yeah. And I was just listening to a conversation about dopamine hits.
Okay.
The neuroscience of dopamine hits, and that's why we double tap things on Instagram, all these things, right?
Yeah.
It's the dopamine hit. But the idea here is so many people do shadow things to avoid the actual thing. And so you can listen to this podcast and feel great. Like, yeah, I'm going to start something in the next 73 days. Or you can look at one of your heroes on Instagram and be like, yeah, I'm into it. That's the shadow thing.
Yeah.
Right? You're getting that dopamine hit from kind of thinking about doing something.
Yeah.
Let's actually take the action, man. Gentlemen. I call myself the gentleman. You are gentlemen. Let's actually take the action of doing the thing, not just a shadow of it. And so on that note, I'm going to sign us out.
Sounds good.
Gentlemen, embrace the storm, because life is everything or nothing. Be great, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.